You've seen the clips, right? The smoke in Dar, the soldiers, the crowds shouting, "Haki yetu, our rights." Every major news channel says the same thing. Tanzania is burning. But it's not that simple. The headlines show the fire, but not what lit it. They tell you people are angry, but not why their anger sounds like heartbreak. So today, we are here to show you a clearer version of what's happening. Because we don't trust the media version of Africa. It always skips the middle part, the human part. What's happening in Tanzania isn't just protests. It's a whole nation arguing with its reflection. It's fear colliding with faith, silence colliding with truth. And you know, once you walk through those streets and listen, you realize this isn't the story of a country collapsing. It's the story of a country finally refusing to be quiet. Tanzanians are saying, as we fight for our country, my friend has been hit during the clashes. Everyone's seen the headlines. Tanzania in turmoil. Protests turn deadly. Western anchors say those words in calm studio voices, as if narrating a movie that doesn't belong to real people. But when you're actually there, it doesn't sound like that. It's not loud all the time. It's not fire and fury 24/7. It's quieter, sadder. It's the sound of a country that's tired of pretending everything's fine. The cameras catch the smoke, but not the silence before it. They film the clashes, but never the moments in between, when people just stand there, hands on heads, wondering how their peaceful Tanzania became a place where soldiers seem to outnumber voters. Look, we get it. Chaos makes better TV. But if you really look at those crowds, if you stand inside them for even a minute, you realize it's not chaos, it's clarity. The people aren't confused. They know exactly what they're fighting for. From various jurisdiction parts of Tanzania, the police continue detaining people in various areas, saying it's necessary to maintain order. They are demanding transparency and truth beyond the official narrative. For elections that feel like choices, not instructions. For leaders who don't hide behind slogans like Uhuru and Maendeleo, freedom and progress, while signing deals no citizen ever sees. They're fighting to be heard in a country that loves to say, "We are united," but hates to prove it. For decades, Tanzania's calm reputation has been sold as proof of progress. But sometimes calm isn't peace. It's pressure pretending to behave. You walk through the streets of Dar es Salaam now, and it's like everyone's awake at the same time for the first time in years. You can feel the shift in the air. Conversations that used to be whispers are now open, raw, sometimes reckless. Taxi drivers talking politics, students arguing in cafes, mothers debating on buses. It's like the whole country suddenly remembered it has a voice and doesn't know how to lower it anymore. And yeah, it's messy, it's tense, but it's also honest. And that honesty scares power more than any protest ever could. Because once people stop believing the story they've been told, they start writing their own. And you can't govern that. See, the media wants you to think Tanzania is losing control. But what if this isn't loss? It's liberation. What if this noise is just the sound of democracy finally learning to speak Swahili again? These demonstrators have had enough. Burning pictures of their president, as opposition sources allege that security forces used live rounds, resulting in several reported casualties. Because honestly, the country isn't breaking down, it's breaking open. And maybe, just maybe, that's what growth looks like. Painful, loud, necessary. So yeah, that's what they're not showing you. The chaos isn't the problem, it's the evidence. Evidence that something buried is trying to breathe again. And that brings us to the question the headlines never ask. How did a country so proud of its calm end up standing in smoke? You know that moment when you can feel something's wrong, but everyone's acting normal? Like when a storm's coming and people keep talking about the weather being nice? Yeah, that's what Tanzania felt like before the election. Calm on the surface, but man, the air was thick. Many Tanzanians say the outcome felt predetermined. The ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM party has governed for more than 6 decades, leading critics to argue it faces little genuine competition. And the opposition? They never stood a chance. For example, the opposition leader Tundu Lissu of Chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, Chadema, was arrested under treason charges, and that's one of the loudest voices of real opposition. At the same time, another key challenger, Luhaga Mpina of ACT Wazalendo, was disqualified from standing. It's like setting up a football match and arresting the other team before kickoff. Still, the rallies happened. Posters went up. People queued. Polling stations opened. Everything looked like democracy, smelled like democracy, until you touched it and realized, nah, this was theater. The official tally showed President Samia Suluhu Hassan winning about 97% of the vote, a figure so high that even longtime supporters questioned its credibility. That's a landslip. That's numbers bending reality until it fits on a podium. The next morning, state media celebrated the triumph of democracy. Meanwhile, the streets were already filling with people who felt cheated. You could see it in their faces, the quiet anger scarier than shouting. Because this wasn't about losing an election. It was about realizing the election was never really theirs. And here's the thing. The media doesn't say, these protests didn't start because people suddenly became violent. They started because people finally stopped being polite. There's a difference. Tanzanians have always been calm, respectful, even gentle in their defiance. But this time, the calm snapped. A group of young men gathering around a tiny radio, the old kind with a broken antenna. The official announcement came through, 97.6%. And one guy just laughed. Not like it was funny, but like it hurts. He said, even God doesn't get that kind of school. Western media later called it unrest. But honestly, it looked more like a revelation. Like a country finally realizing that democracy without choice is just dictatorship with good manners. And that's when the real story began. Not in the ballot box, but in the blackout that followed. Because what happened next wasn't just political, it was psychological. Tanzania didn't just lose faith that night, it lost its voice. It's funny how silence can be the loudest thing you've ever heard. That night, the night after the results, Tanzania went quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. It wasn't peace, it was control. Around 10 p.m., phones started acting weird. WhatsApp messages stopped sending. People thought maybe the network was down. But then X froze. Facebook disappeared. Even local news sites went blank. And suddenly the country that's always online, always scrolling, chatting, trading, joking, just vanished. The government said it was a temporary security measure. That's their phrase for everything. But when you shut down the internet, you don't just stop communication. You stop connection. You take away the air from an entire generation that lives on it. And yet, people found ways. Students in Arusha started sharing protest footage through Bluetooth. In Dodoma, taxi drivers became messengers, finger updates between neighborhoods. Someone even joked, Tanzania just invented 3G, gossip, grit, and guts. That's the thing about people. You can't really silence them. You can delay them, sure, but not delete them. Still, the blackout had consequences. Hospitals couldn't coordinate. Journalists couldn't verify anything. Banks froze transactions. Farmers who rely on mobile payments couldn't buy supplies. It wasn't just about politics anymore. It was survival. And when the truth goes dark, rumors light up. Some said soldiers were moving into cities. Others whispered about mass arrests. No one knew what was real. When information dies, fear takes its place. But you know, the saddest part wasn't even the blackout itself. It was how fast it became normal. Within a few hours, people just adjusted like they'd been here before. Like silence was something they'd practiced. And that's when it hit you. This wasn't about stopping chaos. It was about stopping the connection, the kind that creates accountability. Because once people stop talking to each other, the state can start talking for everyone. And that's when truth doesn't die. It just disappears quietly, like a signal lost in the night. So yeah, that's the night Tanzania went silent. But silence doesn't last forever, does it? Because when you take people's voices away long enough, eventually they start shouting without words. You know, after a few days of silence, something strange happens. The truth starts whispering through the cracks. Not through newspapers or official statements, but through people's faces, through eyes that don't look straight at you anymore. Officials reported 10 deaths, while rights groups and local observers suggest the toll could be higher. And the thing is, nobody could prove anything. Not because it wasn't true, but because proving it had become illegal. When you control the numbers, you shape the narrative. 10 casualties sound like tension. Hundreds sound like tragedy. And one of those headlines scares investors. Western diplomats release their usual lines. We urge restraint. We are deeply concerned. You know those words by heart, right? The same old diplomatic weather report. It might rain, it might not, and either way, no one's coming to help. And here's the twisted part. Ironically, some foreign partners expressing concern also provide training and equipment to Tanzania's security forces. The same ones who sold the tear gas, the armored vehicles, the digital surveillance tools. The same countries whose aid packages are tied to stability. So when reports surfaced of police using live rounds against protesters and foreign embassies issued statements of concern, it all felt like a bad joke. The West talks about democracy, but what they really want is discipline. A quiet, compliant Africa where contracts go smoothly and headlines stay tidy. And that's what many Tanzanians began to see clearly, that sometimes silence isn't just local, it's exported. But silence, no matter how thick, doesn't last. Within a week, something powerful began to rise from underneath it. A hum, a rhythm. Tanzania's youth, the generation that grew up watching the world through cracked phone screens, had seen enough. They'd watched their elders wait patiently for reforms that never came. They'd watched calm used as a weapon, stability as an excuse. And they decided, enough is enough. It started small. A few students in Arusha walking out of their dorms with handwritten signs, "Our voice cannot be deleted." A mechanic in Mwanza closed his shop to join them. Farmers in Morogoro left their fields and blocked a highway. One video, smuggled out through a memory card, showed schoolgirls singing, "Tanzania yetu, haki yetu," our Tanzania, our rights. No party flags, no official leaders, just faces, young, tired, but steady. That's what makes this new movement different. It isn't about a politician. It's about a principle. These youth aren't fighting with machetes. They're fighting with memory. They film everything, every chant, every chase, every wound. Even when the internet is down, they keep recording, keep saving, building what one activist called a library of proof for the future. That's the kind of courage that frightens power. Because once people stop fearing punishment, authority starts to shrink. And it's not just anger driving them. It's pride. It's hope. You can hear it in their voices. They're not trying to destroy Tanzania. They're trying to save it. They say things like, "We want the Tanzania they promised." They still believe in the nation. They just don't believe in who's running it. Even the slogans have changed. Less political, more personal. Our voice cannot be deleted. Silence is not peace. 97% is not truth. They've painted them on walls, buses, and school gates. And of course, the state responded. They always do. State TV called the protests foreign-inspired chaos. Government spokespeople accused the opposition of trying to destabilize peace. The president's office promised dialogue, but the police continued to round up activists in the same breath. A few days later, a new narrative appeared, polished, rehearsed, and dangerous. Suddenly, social media was flooded with posts praising the stability and achievements of CCM. Hashtags like hashtag Tanzania ni salama, Tanzania is safe, trended overnight. It didn't take long for journalists to trace many of those accounts, fake profiles, many created in Nairobi and Dubai. The government had gone digital, building an illusion of consent to drown out dissent. But this generation isn't fooled. They've seen this play before. In Sudan, in Uganda, in Congo. They know propaganda when they see it. And so they fight back not just in the streets, but in the story. Because whoever controls the story controls the future. And that's why this struggle in Tanzania matters beyond its borders. It's not just about who counts the votes. It's about who controls the narrative of Africa's democracy. Now, let's talk about something the Western press loves to repeat. Tanzania is developing fast. And they're not wrong, at least not on paper. You've got the standard gauge railway connecting Dar es Salaam to Dodoma and Mwanza, the Julius Nyerere hydropower project roaring to life on the Rufiji River, one of the biggest in East Africa. Highways, ports, towers. Tanzania is building at a speed that impresses even its critics. But here's the catch. Development means nothing if people feel disposable. You can pour concrete all day, but if the person walking on it can't afford lunch, that's not development. That's decoration. And every time someone questions this version of progress, the answer from the top is the same. We are doing this for stability. As if justice were a luxury, not the foundation of progress. Tanzania's leaders love to talk about sovereignty. They'll proudly say, "We don't bow to the IMF. We don't need the West." And that's a rare and admirable thing in Africa today. It takes courage to stand up to external pressure. But sovereignty isn't just about rejecting outsiders. It's about respecting insiders. True independence abroad must also mean respect for citizens' voices at home. That's not sovereignty. That's isolation. And here's where Tanzania becomes a paradox, and maybe a mirror for much of Africa today. On one hand, the government stands firm against foreign control. It renegotiated mining contracts, demanded fairer deals with investors, and refused IMF terms that could have privatized national assets. In that sense, Tanzania is walking the same proud path that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have begun to walk, the path of economic dignity. But on the other hand, that same government turns that strength inward, using it not to defend its people, but to discipline them. It's like a soldier wearing armor to protect the homeland, but ending up using it against his own brothers. And maybe that's what makes Tanzania's story so important right now. It's both the problem and the possibility. A nation strong enough to say no to the West, but still struggling to say yes to its own citizens. So when Western media shows you only the flames, remember, this is not just another African crisis. It's a continental question playing out in real time. Can Africa truly be free if our governments fight foreign domination but repeat the same methods of control at home? As of now, the protests continue. Human rights groups report that large numbers of protesters have been detained. Independent journalists report continued unrest in some regions, including unverified reports of gunfire. The government continues to promise investigations. But what's happening on the ground feels bigger than a single election. It feels like a nation's soul trying to wake itself up. The youth who are marching now grew up hearing about Julius Nyerere, about unity, discipline, and dignity. But their version of unity includes freedom. Their version of discipline includes truth. Their version of dignity includes choice. And they're not asking for chaos, they're asking for accountability. Maybe that's the hardest truth for both the West and African elites to hear. People don't want to burn down their nations. They want to belong to them again. Because here's the bigger picture. Tanzania's story is not isolated. It echoes the streets of Dakar, where students protest corruption. It echoes in Khartoum, where Sudanese youth demand justice. It echoes in Ouagadougou, where Captain Ibrahim Traoré reminds the world that Africa's sovereignty is not for sale. Each of these struggles is a verse in the same song, the song of a continent remembering its worth. And Tanzania's verse, painful as it is, might just be one of the most important, because it shows that sovereignty without democracy becomes tyranny in local language. Real freedom means both independence from outsiders and respect for the people inside. And that, right there, is the African future we all deserve. So when you hear Western anchors say, Tanzania descends into chaos, ask yourself, who benefits from that story? Maybe Tanzania isn't falling apart. Maybe it's waking up. And if waking up means breaking a few chains, even the invisible ones, then maybe that's what growth truly looks like. Painful, loud, but necessary. Because this, right here, is the sound of a continent learning to speak for itself again. If you've been watching till now, tell us, do you think silence means peace? If progress needs fear to survive, is it really progress? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. And if you want to see more stories like this one, raw, real, unapologetically African, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because this channel isn't just about news, it's about truth, the kind that doesn't come from Western studios, but from African streets. Until next time, stay informed, stay proud, and stay free.